Mainframe versus cloud. I know, it sounds like a battle between the ancient and the modern, right? But what if the biggest fight is just a big misunderstanding? We're about to demystify mainframe technology, and we're going to do it by simply translating its old school language into the cloud terms we all get. Let's dive in. Mainframe's hard. It's just so difficult. We've all heard this, haven't we? It makes it sound like this unbreachable fortress of ancient tech. But you know what? That's not really the whole story. Because what if the real barrier isn't the technology at all? What if it's just the words they use? We're about to see that this is basically just a language gap, and it's one we can close, like right now.
All right, let's start with the basics, the core system. We're going to translate some of the fundamental hardware terms from mainframe speak into the cloud language we use every single day.
Okay, so if you ever hear a mainframe expert mention a CEC or CPC, don't let the acronym scare you. They're talking about the central processor complex. All you need to do is hear that and just think server, or, the main system hardware. That's it.
And the HMC? Well, this one's pretty much what it says on the tin, the hardware management console. It's the interface, the dashboard you use to manage all that hardware. Super straightforward.
Next up, an LPAR. It stands for logical partition. Look, if you have ever partitioned hardware in the cloud to create a bunch of virtual machines on one physical box, then you already understand this. It's the exact same concept, carving up one big machine into a bunch of smaller, independent systems.
Okay, so direct translation is one thing, but now we get to the really interesting part. We're going to talk about the concepts that don't have a perfect one-to-one translation, and that's because they show off the unique superpowers of the mainframe. So to really appreciate this next part, let's think about a super common problem in the cloud. Your database gets massive, right? It's too big for one server. So what do you have to do? You shard it. You basically have to chop it up into smaller, separate pieces and spread them across a bunch of different systems. The mainframe, though, it solves this problem in a totally different way. It has something called the coupling facility. You can think of it as this special piece of the system that lets a whole bunch of different computers directly share data, almost like they're a single hive mind. And the benefit of this is huge. You don't have to break your data up. All the different systems can see and use one single consistent set of data. It lets all these separate machines act together as one big cohesive system. It's pretty brilliant. Now, let's take that amazing idea and scale it up globally. That's what a GDPS is, a globally dispersed parallel sysplex. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful, but just think of it as the mainframe's answer to a multi-region cloud deployment, but with a major twist. Because of that shared backend, all the systems can be active and working together at the same time. They're not just passive backup copies. And if you're wondering how reliable this really is, well, this is the kind of architecture that giants like Visa depend on to stay up and running, all day, every day. It's been proven at a scale that is just mind-boggling. Okay, let's move up the stack a little bit to the operating system. You're going to see the exact same pattern here. Old school terms for concepts that are actually very, very familiar to us. Here's a super simple but really important one. If you hear someone say they need to IPL a system, you'll know exactly what they mean. It just stands for initial program load. It's their term for booting the system. That's it. And here's another classic, the nucleus. It's just the historical term for what we all universally call the kernel of an operating system today. So you hear nucleus, you just think kernel. Easy. You know how in the cloud, we use tools like Kubernetes to manage and orchestrate all of our applications? Well, the mainframe has the Workload Manager, or WLM, and it does a really similar, really critical job. It manages all the applications running and makes sure that the most important stuff always gets the resources it needs to get the job done. And JCL? Job control language. It's basically the script you write to tell a batch job what to do and what resources it's allowed to use. Honestly, it's not that different from defining a job in a YAML file for Kubernetes. And what about a PDS or a PDSE? It stands for Partitioned Dataset. Fundamentally, you can just think of this as the mainframe's way of talking about folders and files. The underlying structure is a bit different, sure, but the core idea is exactly the same. So when you start putting all these little translations together, something amazing starts to happen. It reveals a brand new and honestly a much more powerful way of looking at modern IT.
It's not about being different, it's about seeing how similar things are. You see, the goal here isn't to pick a winner. It's about understanding how these two incredibly powerful systems can, and already do, work together in a modern hybrid cloud world.
This gives us a really simple three-step way of thinking. Step 1, hear the old term. Step 2, translate it to the concept you already get. And step 3, now you can actually collaborate and solve problems together. And suddenly, with this kind of shared language, experts from totally different backgrounds can finally speak the same language. Those artificial walls between the teams, they just start to melt away. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. What amazing new possibilities open up when we stop looking at the oldest tech and the newest tech as rivals, and we start treating them as essential partners in building whatever comes next?